Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Test Those Breasts podcast. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn. I'm a retired teacher of 20 years and a breast cancer thriver turned staunch, unapologetic, loud supporter and advocate for others, bringing education and awareness through a myriad of medical experts, therapists, caregivers, and other survivors. A breast cancer diagnosis is incredibly overwhelming with the mounds of information out there, especially on Dr. Google. I get it. I'm not a doctor, and I know how important it is to uncover accurate information, which is my ongoing mission through my nonprofit. The podcast includes personal stories and opinions from breast cancer survivors and professional physicians, providing the most up-to-date information at the time of recording. Evidence, research, and practices are always changing, so please check the date of the recording and always refer to your medical professionals for the most up-to-date information. I hope you find this podcast a source of inspiration and support from my guests. Their contact information is in the show notes, so please feel free to reach out to them. We have an enormous breast cancer community ready to support you in so many ways. Now let's listen to the next episode of Test Those Breasts. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn. And today we have an extra special guest on today that I got to meet last December. Her name is Katelyn Armstrong. She goes by Kate or Katelyn, but I'm going to call her Kate. So Kate is a 39-year-old mother, wife, mental health therapist. At 34 years old, she was diagnosed with triple-positive breast cancer after finding a lump in her right breast. She was born and raised in New England, now resides in North Carolina with her husband and 8-year-old son. Prior to breast cancer, she was in the wellness influencing space and working as a mental health therapist with various populations, including substance abuse, children, and adults. She now has shifted her focus to supporting others diagnosed with cancer with their mental health. She is on the board of directors for a nonprofit, the Booby Queens Company, where she helps assist in their mental health programs for young women diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, hello, Kate. Welcome to the show. It's so good to see your face.
Yes, you as well. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about mental health and cancer.
Yeah, well, I've been wanting to interview you since I met you in December. We met at the breast cancer symposium in San Antonio, which was a total mind blow for me because I didn't realize really how important patient advocates were.
Yes.
And I remember signing up for the symposium. I had been wanting to do that. And it was like $75 to go. And I'm like, why? What? Do I fit in there? And I said, yeah, I do have a nonprofit. And I'm like, why are $75? So many other people have to pay $700. Yeah. And when I got there, we had that really nice dinner and we had that patient advocate lounge where they fed us amazing food and just seriously showered us with goodness. And it became very crystal clear to me that wow, patient advocates are super important because we really truly are the bridge between the patient and the researchers and the medical providers. So then it just became, I understood it. So we're in this really important space and both of us are survivors. And I'm really excited that you are on here because one of my missions is to really reach those younger folks in that, yeah, you're not too young to get breast cancer. And, you were 34 and that's so many people don't even know about breast cancer at that age. So I would love for you to share with our audience, first of all, who Kate was before breast cancer.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. So let me just say that. And thank you so much for having me. So Kate, before breast cancer, like I said in the intro, I was in the wellness influencing space. And so for about 6 years prior to my diagnosis, I had been representing a wellness company and was really outspoken about health and being the best version of yourself online. And so I had really solidified my belief in myself of being this very healthy person, the quintessential picture of health. I was eating clean. I was working out every day. I, looked great in a bikini, all of these things that I think society shows us health is. And I had my son at 30. And so he was about 3 or 4 years old when I was diagnosed. And so when I found my breast cancer, I was very thrown off by the fact that I felt almost betrayed by this idea of what I had envisioned myself to be prior to breast cancer. Prior to breast cancer, too, I went to college for mental health, for psychology, with the intention of becoming a substance abuse therapist, which I did. And that was always like my lifelong dream since the time I was 14. My uncle died of a drug overdose when I was 14 years old. And so since then, I really wanted to get into substance abuse counseling, family substance abuse counseling. And so I did that for a little while and then ended up doing kids mental health stuff down in the Florida Keys, which is where we lived until we moved to North Carolina. And so I worked there for about a decade doing children's mental health, and then family substance abuse counseling there as well, and really loved it. Love mental health, love psychology, and this has been an evolution of my career.
Yeah, it's interesting when you get diagnosed, all these things from what you used to do and
Yes.
what you're doing now just kind of comes all together in almost like a fruition, and it's like a compilation. Like I never thought I'd be in this space at all,
Mhm.
I mean, I was doing way other things before I was diagnosed. So yeah, so you had a really good life. You were busy and you knew exactly what you wanted to do. And then wham, this breast cancer diagnosis. Can you share with us how that happened, how you found it, what you even knew about breast cancer?
Yeah. Well, I actually knew a little bit, but not a lot of it. My grandmothers, both of them, my paternal and my maternal grandmothers, both had breast cancer, but they are also Irish Catholics from New England, and they don't talk about anything bad. So everything is great. You ask them how they're doing, they're great all the time. One of them is still alive, and there's nothing wrong ever. So I knew that they had been diagnosed with breast cancer at some point in their life, but I didn't really know anything about it because it just wasn't talked about. So when I was 34, I was in the shower and I was washing my body and felt something in the upper right side of my breast and kind of was like, oh, that feels off. But I had always had dense breast tissue. And so it always kind of felt different at times, always kind of felt a little bit lumpy. And I just was like, okay, well, we'll see how that goes over the next couple of weeks. I was very much like, this doesn't feel right, but also wasn't panicked about it. So I let a couple of weeks go by, maybe like two, and then I was like, all right, this hasn't changed at all, and it doesn't feel normal. Not that I really knew what my normal had felt like,
Right.
but I just knew like it was something felt very off to me. And at the time, I had also been having like a lot of like I was said before to you, I was always like a clean eater. I had beautiful skin, but over the about 3 to 4 months prior to my diagnosis, I had had like a lot of horrible acne, like on my neck area and underneath my chin. And so I was like, this just feels like maybe hormonal, like something's up with my hormones. I don't really know. But I was like, well, I need to establish care. We had moved probably like a year prior to North Carolina, and I hadn't had a doctor, needed to get an OB anyway. So I was like, let's just throw everything out there and see what sticks kind of. So I went to a brand new OB and said, hey, I feel this thing and I'm not really sure what it is. And I always say I'm so grateful for her, and she knows this because she's like one of my neighbors. Ironically, she ended up being one of my neighbors, and I see her all the time, and I tell her all the time she saved my life because she believed me, and she was like, yeah, I don't know what this is, but it doesn't feel right, and so like let's figure out more. Unfortunately, so many young women who are my age or who were diagnosed when I was diagnosed, they have to fight for somebody to listen to them and to do additional things. But I'm so grateful she listened to me right away and was like, yep, this doesn't feel normal, like let's get you in for testing. And then that all felt very much like a vacuum from the time that I saw her till the time I got a phone call on December 6th of 2021. Was probably a little over a month. And then I was diagnosed right before Christmas in 2021 with stage 1 triple positive breast cancer.
Okay. And so thank goodness it was early.
Yes.
considering, right? And you're right. They, so many women that are younger before they ever even start getting mammograms are either gaslit or, oh, you're too young. It must be hormones. But I want to go back to when
Yeah.
you were talking about how you felt that in the shower.
Mhm.
I felt a lump myself and I was like, I have lumpy breasts, I have
Mhm.
dense breast tissue, and I was kind of in the same type of mindset where it's like, well, I mean, they didn't find anything on my mammogram 6 months prior.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I ended up going in and getting stage 2. Had I gone in when I first felt that lump, I probably would have been stage 1 probably,
Mhm.
but thank goodness for your doctor
Mhm.
that she did listen to you, and I just highly recommend all doctors listen to their patients. But that is just not something that's not the reality
No.
that young women face when they go in to talk to a doctor. And in that case, I really believe that if that's something that is happening with someone, that they are allowed to go to the next doctor.
Well, one thing that she said to me that I was really kind of hearing so many women's stories now, it's able for me to reflect. And she said something that I encourage everybody to say to their doctors if they do feel dismissed is like, let's take a look. And if nothing's there, nothing's there. If something's there, then okay, like let's figure it out. But we hope that nothing's there. So
Right.
if, let's just do the scan and see what happens. It's
Yeah.
not going to do any harm. So take a look.
Okay. So then what happened? What were your treatments like? Tell us all the things about that.
So, like I said, I was diagnosed on December 6th. Around December 20th, I had an MRI, which confirmed the staging of it, and was told that I was going to do TCHP, so taxotere, carboplatin, Herceptin, and Perjeta, with 6 rounds every 3 weeks. And so I did that. I started in beginning of January. So at the beginning of the new year, I started TCHP. I went in every 3 weeks for 6 rounds, and it was hard for sure. Every round was different. Nothing felt the same. It was really grueling on my body. It felt pretty much every round. It had felt like I had a really bad flu for about a week. And then by the second week, I would start to feel better. And then by the third week, I would be like normal, or it felt normal. And then I would have to go do it all over again.
Just in time for the next round.
Just in time for the next round. And that was really difficult mentally. Right around round 4, I had demanded my oncologist to do a scan or an ultrasound of something because I was pretty miserable and was kind of in a place where I was like, well, if this isn't working, I don't want to keep doing this. Luckily, that scan at the time, that ultrasound, they couldn't find it anymore, which was amazing. And they ended up bringing in like additional techs and additional radiologists because they were like, we're not seeing it. Where is it? And they found the clip that had been placed by the doctor who did the biopsy. And so by round 4, there was no detectable tumor. And I tried to get my oncologist, I tried to talk her into not doing round 5 and 6, but she overruled me. And so we did round 5 and 6. And it was very difficult mentally. 4, 5, and 6 were awful. Just a lot of mental health symptoms came up for me at that time. And so did the 6 rounds. Had a double mastectomy with no reconstruction in May of 2022. And then I did 12 additional rounds of Herceptin and Perjeta. So I did immunotherapy and I finished in February of 2023. And so I'm still on Lupron and currently tamoxifen, and I will take that for an unbeknownst amount of time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's, correct me if I'm wrong, that's because of the type of breast cancer that you have, right? That you had.
Yeah.
I love how you put that word in there, demanded. I love this, obviously very smart, sassy, spunky young woman that you are. You demanded that they do an ultrasound or something just to see if it was working. And I love that about you because so many people are not like that. It's like it's scary to use your voice with your doctors. But then I liked how oncologist was also equally as demanding. Like, you
Yeah.
are going to do this and your life is going to be saved. But yeah,
Well,
so
my
yeah.
oncologist was honestly, like I tell her all the time, I'm like, if you weren't my doctor, and I understand we have a doctor-patient relationship, you'd be my best friend, because she was somebody that, and that's something that I think is super important when you are first diagnosed, like to trust your, like they say, trust your doctors, but genuinely, my oncologist, like if she had told me to jump off a bridge, I would have said, okay, great, let's do it. Like there wasn't a lot of, for me, I felt so incredibly safe with her that we had a great relationship, and we still do, where I can go in and say, hey, I want this. And she'll say, well, I don't know. And I'll say, okay, but I know. And she'll say, okay, well, fine. So, she's just like, it's that really safe, comfortable
Mhm.
relationship, to be able to have those really open conversations.
Just like therapy.
Yes,
You have to
just
be
like
able to
therapy.
trust your therapist,
Yes,
and not that you would be friends on the outside, but like with my therapist, I always tell her, I said, if you weren't my therapist, we'd be friends on the outside because
yes.
we just get along so well, and it's such a safe space.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So, gosh, that whole everything that you had to go through was
Mhm.
so hard.
Yeah.
I remember all too well how hard it was. And I remember as you were telling me the story about, yeah, so we would have the treatment and then I'd feel horrible for the first week. Second week, I was feeling slightly more human.
Yep.
And then by the third week, I was feeling normal. So that's when my husband and I would take a camp trip.
Mm.
We had something planned every 3 weeks, which was helpful for me because I had something to look forward to, and we would go and to a different place, and we'd take the dogs, and it was so nice on my mental health as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great to just have those moments where you feel like yourself again.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of, what was your relationship like with your husband at that time? Tell us all the things about that because I know that, and I think you and I talked about this in San Antonio. I know that, this is also very hard on, husbands and wives and, significant others, whatever you want to call them. Even if you have a really good foundation in your relationship, it definitely can wreak some havoc. What was your situation like?
Well, I actually thought our relationship was really great prior. And it was, but I think my life looks very different now. When I say my life, like physically it looks kind of the same. I'm still married, I still have the same kid, like
Mhm.
all that stuff, but myself, my who I am, how I behave in the day-to-day basis drastically changed after cancer. My priorities shifted, my values shifted. As a young 30-year-old, I was very much in a space where I was just trying to accomplish my goals and make myself successful, or whatever that looked like as a 30-year-old. Like, you're chasing you're as a 30-year-old, you are building a family, you're chasing career goals, you're trying to make it, you're trying to build some legacy and your life there. And when I was diagnosed, all of that stopped. Like I didn't have the capacity to chase my dreams and goals the same way. I wasn't looking to do the best successful thing that I could show up on social media and make it look like I was having I was super, super uber successful. And so my relationship with my husband actually got better after cancer because of the changes that happened in our lives during cancer. I think, it was very difficult for him after, during cancer. He kind of, I mean, I know we both were in survival mode. We kind of just plowed through the treatment plan. That's what you do. You get the plan and you follow the plan, because if you follow the plan, then the result of the plan is going to be you survive, or you hope that that's the result of the plan,
Mhm.
right? And so when you get to the end of the plan, you're like, okay, well, like now what? And I think when we were in treatment mode, we were so focused on the plan and executing the plan that when we
Yeah.
actually stopped the plan, when the plan ended, we were able to look around and be like, oh, okay, actually, our marriage wasn't that great then. And we actually have a deeper appreciation for each other. We can actually see the cracks. And I think for us, being a therapist helps a little bit because you're able to step back and evaluate the issues or the things that need to be repaired kind of objectively. And that's what we did. We went to couples counseling and we were able to objectively look at the things that weren't working for us before, the trauma that we had collectively gone through together. And we're, luckily, happily in a really great place today because of that work that we did together.
Right, right. I love hearing that kind of story. And it is interesting that you look back and go, wow, there are so many things, like we had to be put through something like this in order to make our marriage even better.
Yeah.
And I think too, you as a therapist, one of my very best friends is a therapist, and we talk about this all the time. Marriages are, I feel like they get better, I think, over time when you do the work. And I think a lot of people think that, oh, you get married, you do this stuff and you just kind of go about life and everything's fine and dandy. And yeah, you fight sometimes and all this stuff, but we really change over time.
Yes.
My husband and I have been married for almost 21 years, together for 24. I'm a different person than I was when I first met him. I mean, I'm Jamie at the core, but there are so many things that he and I have gone through. Loss of our parents, cancer. He's about to have shoulder surgery, which please wish me luck.
That's what you do.
But he also is the type of person that will go to therapy, begrudgingly at first, but then he will go, and he recognizes that it really helped us be able to say the things that we needed to say and then start really working on it moving forward. I am a big believer that you have to maintain your marriage much like you would maintain your car, right? So that it works. And so I like to ask that question because I like to hear what people's experiences are with their significant others. So I'm really happy to hear that about you and your husband.
We were both both people have to be willing to be able to look at those things and say, okay, how do we fix this? And I think a lot of times when I talk to women in survivorship after diagnoses and their relationships are suffering, that the willingness piece is the first hurdle. Both people have to be willing to talk about this stuff and talk about the changes. There's a lot more changes that happen in a relationship other than just you had cancer and I took care of you. There's identity changes, there's sexuality and intimacy changes. There's a lot of changes that happen within a relationship, and being able to openly talk about it without shame and without guilt is something that I think is imperative to repairing relationships after cancer.
Right. Super, super good advice. Well, speaking of that, getting into your survivorship, you have quite a wonderful presence on social media. I've been following you since I met you, and you decided not to have reconstruction. And that goes along with, having these conversations with your husband and this whole identity change with intimacy and all of that, because we are so conditioned to believe that having the perfect breasts and having the perfect body and the perfect skin, looking great in a bathing suit, that is the ultimate goal. So let's talk about your survivorship and how you show up for others to help them through some stuff.
Yeah. So when I was making the surgical decisions that we are able to make, or, I was grateful to be able to make some surgical decisions, I did decide to forego reconstruction and to stay flat. Again, I had a small child at the time. He was 4, and where we live, we don't really have any family around us. And so my mom was flying back and forth from Florida every chemo round to come help out. And I knew that the additional surgeries was going to, increase my time away from my family and all this stuff. And so I made that decision, and I started just kind of talking about on social media journey with survivorship, with cancer, and started to connect with other women who were experiencing the same thing. And I always say I basically used social media like a diary for most of my treatment because I felt really alone and lost. I had older women to talk to, but I didn't have women who were going to preschool to drop their kid off and then going to chemo in my life at the time. I do now, unfortunately and fortunately. But at that time, I was really just searching for connection. And so I took to social media and started talking about it, and then started kind of talking about mental health and how I was repairing that in survivorship for myself. And I always say, like, this spunky girl on the internet text or messaged me one day and was like, hey, I'm really looking for somebody that I can talk to about this. And so it evolved from there and started to develop my own kind of mental health coaching business where I was seeing individual clients to help and support them with their mental health through survivorship. And then I met online, because that's where we meet our friends these days.
Yep.
I met one of my very best breast cancer friends, Whitney O'Connor, who is the founder and CEO of the Booby Queen Company. And she was doing similar stuff with survivorship and mental health. And so we've been linked up for a little over 2 years now to be able to kind of drive this mental health awareness initiative in the breast cancer community.
Yeah, I love that. And I got to meet Whitney as well. You both, both have such a wonderful presence and such a good mission. And it's important. When I was diagnosed, I had a friend of mine that said, Jamie, you're about to get into the sisterhood of all sisterhoods. And she was right. It's astounding how many people I've met on the internet. And then it was fun in San Antonio that I got to meet people in person that I had already interviewed or had been following. And so that was really cool. And it is true. It is the sisterhood of all sisterhoods. And also, I'm really discovering this brotherhood also, and, interviewing, male breast cancer survivors. And so everybody's all together. And I love the piece about mental health, because that is something that's so important. And you're really good at, being really open on social media. Can you share with us some of the social media videos that you do? Because you are able to show the thing and say the thing that so many people are afraid to.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of comes from what I said before about my grandmothers not talking about the things. And when I recognized that, when I was first diagnosed, and I was, like, what do you mean you had breast cancer twice, to one of my grandmothers, and there wasn't a lot of knowledge around it. I was angry. Like, why is nobody talking about this stuff? Like, this isn't a secret. And my breast cancer was not genetically linked, but also I was like, why are we keeping this all a secret? And what I recognized, and what I also experienced with myself, was that there was a lot of shame and guilt around being diagnosed with breast cancer. And I wanted to take that veil off. I had made a decision. I could either live in the shame that I thought I was this healthy 34-year-old who had the best bikini body and was the quintessential picture of health, or I could understand that just because I did all the right things, or just because I checked all their boxes that told me I was going to be the healthy person, that I still got breast cancer. And so I made the decision that I wasn't going to pretend, be something or somebody that I wasn't. I always say, if you meet me in real life, I want to match up to the person that I am on social media. And so I always hope that, like, if anybody follows me on the social media and you meet me in real life, I want to be the same exact person across the board, because I have met people that are different.
Yep.
And behave different and show up differently in person than they do on the internet. And so I'm a very open person. My house is like, the door's always swinging open with people walking in and out. Like, I have an open door policy in my house with all my son's friends and my friends. And, so I wanted people to feel that on social media. I wanted people to feel like I wasn't just this professional therapist. I didn't want people to think that I was the best breast cancer survivor. I wanted people to, when they go to my social media, I want people to feel like I'm your best friend. and we're just talking about hard shit.
Yeah. And I love talking about that stuff. And I will say that I met you backwards. So I met you in
Yeah.
person first.
Yep.
And then, yeah, I met you in person first, and then I started following you. And I will tell the audience right now, you are that person. I was drawn to you and Whitney and all the other gals, right?
Yeah.
That were just so authentically human and are able to talk about elephants in the room, and you're just real. So that is one of the reasons I reached back out to you and said, I need to have you on my podcast. Not just because, well, one, because you were young and like younger than most people think we're supposed to be when we get breast. It's supposed to be an old lady disease, right? And I'm a very open person as well. You would not catch me hiding anything. I documented everything on social media, and I even the perky girls, I got my
Yes.
nipple
Yes.
areola tattoos. I got my touch-ups when I was there in San Antonio, and they did a sort of an interview with me while I was getting those touch-ups, and they took those sound bites, me telling the story, coming into their place, getting the touch-ups, talking about when I came there a year prior or 2 years prior with a bunch of other girls, a few other girls, as a girls' trip to get our nipple tattoos. And they showed my 3D nipple tattoos on the internet, right? So it's like, yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
pretty open. I'm like, this is what it looks like,
This is what it
friends, and I'm
is.
not going to hide it, right? And
Yeah.
you've even shown your chest,
Oh
right?
yeah.
You've been like, I remember the one that you showed me of you in the bathroom just getting ready, and you've got your flat chest out there, and and I think that it is important for people to understand that we are beautiful, and scars and all, right? And also talking about the mental health, you know, awful stuff that happens in our minds, and what we go through is very hard as well. So, anyway, I just really appreciate your presence on there,
Thank
and
you. I think
you
with,
helped me.
with the, with, I will say about being flat and showing up flat on the internet, it was difficult in the beginning, but because I was 34 and I wasn't necessarily like seeing flat reconstruction out there on younger women, other than a few. There are a few women. There's one woman who's in the UK who I followed, and then there's a woman in West Virginia who I followed who are around my age and they're flat. And that's how I was like, I started to find the flat option. And so once I realized that, I very much was like, oh, I need to do this. I need to show up this way. I need to share with people what flat on a 35-year-old looks like. I need to talk about what it's like to be a young mom at the pool with her kid and I don't have any breasts. I need to talk about what it feels like to go dress shopping for a wedding that you're attending as a young woman with all these beautiful women around you and you don't have any breasts and what that feels like and what that looks like. And so I just kind of started there with that. My social media can be it's a connector, but it also can feel like a very lonely place when you feel like you don't match up to other people or they're doing it better than you. And so my goal with my social media and my presence there was always to make people feel like, oh, I feel that way too. Or if they are feeling a certain way, that they don't feel alone or they don't feel like they're doing this survivor thing wrong.
Yeah. I think the very first person that I met who is flat is Ellen Winters. Do you follow her? Flat Please.
You know what? Maybe I believe, maybe.
Yeah, she's really great too. I interviewed her quite some time ago, and we had a good conversation about that and what it meant to be flat and different than other people. So I just thoroughly admire women, who are able to just come out and talk about this is real life, and we get to talk about it, and we should talk about it. My guess is, in knowing you, you are comfortable in your body, and you are cute as a button.
Thank you.
I don't know how cute a button is, but they're pretty cute, apparently.
That's the saying anyway.
I just admire young women like you. You know, you're 39 now and
Mhm.
you get to talk about this kind of stuff. And again, this really goes along with because my last question I want to ask you is this advice for people who have never been diagnosed before. And I would love to be able to focus that on people that are, you know, in their 20s and 30s, because we know that breast cancer is on the rise in
Mhm.
women that are in their 20s and 30s. And I am angry that none of us, really none of us, or the majority of us, never learned about breast health
Yeah.
in those younger years. I mean, yes, we would go into our gynecologists and things like that, and they would feel around on your breast, but we never really learned about what to look for and what to do if you feel something that's off. What kind of piece of advice do you have for people who've never been diagnosed before?
Well, I there's a lot of advice. First would be obviously to know your family history and understand what that looks like. After I was diagnosed, I had a good girlfriend of mine who ended up going and getting genetic testing done and found out that she had the ATM gene,
Oh,
which is a pretty rare genetic mutation, but it increases your risk of breast cancer and gynecological cancers. And so, understanding your family history is huge, but also not being afraid to have these conversations. I think when I was first diagnosed, I was very angry that I felt like breast cancer was very sexualized.
mm.
And I didn't like that piece because nothing about my breast cancer experience was pretty. And I, am guilty of probably at some point in my life, like I was a cheerleader in college and probably shaking the pink pom poms and doing the October breast cancer awareness gimmick thing are of that age. And moms too, like talking to your children about breast cancer is important. We talk to our children about sex, we talk to our children about STDs. We also need to start talking to our children about cancer and what that looks like, and breast cancer, especially young women and young girls, like to take that shame and guilt off of ourselves, take away those taboo things, because we can either live in silence around uncomfortable conversations, or we can get loud about things that are uncomfortable and save a life. And I think saving a life is a lot more important than being comfortable.
I like that. And that's one of the reasons I really like teaching the breast health class with the Know Your Lemons curriculum, because it's not sexualized. I mean, they're using lemons, right? And I don't know if I think you probably follow Dr. Robin Roth, the Booby Docs,
Yeah.
and she wrote that book, Everyone Has Boobies.
Yeah.
And I bought it and
Yeah.
I read it to my 10-year-old granddaughter. And we even talked about it at dinner last night in front of the family. I said, we read that book together. And, she learned that all mammals have boobies and that it's not something that's to be ashamed of. It's a blob of fat on your
Yeah.
body. And I remember asking her the question after we read it. There were a couple things that her little takeaway. She
Mhm.
has an emotional support tiger that she carries everywhere with her. And I think she said that tiger had like 12 boobies or something like that. But she also said, I learned that babies have boobies. I said, yeah, babies have boobies. Everybody has boobies. Some are bigger, some are, different shapes and things like that. But even talking to them at that young age so that it's not sexualized. And again, that's one of the reasons I am so focused on getting into those spaces where young women are, whether it be sororities or, Girl Scouts or the medical school, wherever they are, to teach them about breast health and that you are not too young to get breast
Sure.
cancer. And it's way better to know about your breast health and what doesn't feel normal, learning about the 12 signs of breast cancer and what to do if you feel something is off. It's way better than getting breast cancer at age 34 or age 25 or whatever it is, knowing next to nothing, if nothing, when you get it. And because that's a pretty scary place to be.
Yeah, and it feels very lonely. Talking, like not being ashamed of our bodies, is so important. And, I'm on the internet with my shirt off sometimes, but I'm also not afraid to be in front of my son with my shirt off sometimes and talking, he was 4 when I had my surgery, and so he didn't really understand it. Now he's becoming to an age where he is understanding, and he's like looks at my body and realizes like there's some things missing. And to be able to have those conversations is really important, because my hope for him is, number one, he's going to be able to look at women's bodies in a different way and understand that all women have beautiful bodies regardless of their parts. And number two, that if he has a girlfriend, he has a wife, he has a fiance in the future, and they're younger and they're not aware of these things, that it's a comfortable conversation for him to have. It's a natural conversation for him to have, that his mom had breast cancer and she was 34, and like all of these things. And so the more stories we can share with each other, the more we're going to help each other and the more we're going to heal each other.
Yeah, I love that. If we can get more people to do just that, oh, what a world it would be.
What a wonderful world it would be.
Moving away from the, I don't know, patriarchal, toxic masculinity or whatever space that we see so much of. So thank you for doing that. And I bet your son is going to be just growing up to be such a nice young man. And maybe, advocating for people in the breast cancer world. Well, this is great, Kate. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok, K, the number 8, Armstrong. The O is a 0. So I'm all over social media. You can find me at the Booby Queen Company. I help run the programming for our mental health services. We do retreats for young women diagnosed with breast cancer. We have done workshops for mental health awareness. We also are working on some clinical curriculums for the future for the framework that we utilize in our retreats. And so you can find me on all of those places. And
this is open to not just one area. I mean, it's open nationwide, worldwide.
Given the grants that we write, we do only accept individuals young women from United States.
Okay.
Because of our grants. And we do have criteria. They have to be diagnosed 45 or younger. And we take women a year to 3 years out of treatment. So that doesn't necessarily mean like a surgery, or that means more of like active chemo treatment. So a year to 3 years. And the reason why we do that is because, well, first, the age is for a reason. The age is because a lot of times the conversations are a little bit different. Most 50-year-olds aren't talking about family planning and fertility,
right?
Like somebody who's 27 and just got married. And we also, clinically speaking, these are very small retreats. And so we have anywhere from 6 to 10 girls attend. And because we keep it intimate, it resembles a group-ish therapy environment. And in that environment, you want everybody to be on the same kind of like playing field a little bit. No, if we have a woman who is 27 and somebody who is 65, that 65-year-old is going to feel maternal over that 27-year-old. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping it very much like a peer type environment. And a year to 3 years out. So what we have discovered, and we've done some data research through our retreats, and we've collected data from it, is that around a year out of active treatment is when women start to experience the most significant mental health challenges. When we first come out of treatment, everybody is like, oh, great, you're good now. And you feel good. I remember the first couple of weeks being done with treatment, I was like, the sky is bluer, the birds are singing, everything's great. I have flowers and daisies everywhere. But then reality started to hit, and I was like, oh, crap, this is hard. And I don't feel like myself. And I was having some serious like identity crises because the person that I was trying to go back to didn't exist anymore. And so I had to develop this whole new person while also trying to heal from cancer. And so the year mark out of active treatment is when a lot of those mental health symptoms and behavioral health symptoms come up, because people are out of survival mode. You're done with the plan and you're like, okay, well, now what? What am I supposed to do now?
Yep.
And so that's why we keep that from a year to 3.
That makes total sense. And I went through all of that. I remember the February after I'd had my first two major surgeries. That's where I was. I was like, oh my God, I'm in retirement now. And I was going to do something completely different. And then cancer hit. So I dealt with that. Now all of the treatments, at least that part of the treatments are over. And now what? And that is where I Test Those Breasts was actually born. I was like,
Yeah.
I got to do something. And
Yep.
so I ended up launching it on the 1 year anniversary of my diagnosis. So I totally get that. And that makes complete sense. Wow, how lucky people would be to get to work with you. I just think that
Yeah.
that's amazing. And I guess the driving home message here too is that if any of you out there who are listening are diagnosed at some point, there's a lot of support out there.
Mhm.
And reaching out to Kate, reaching out to me, or, anyone else that you can find to lead you to the appropriate person for that fits your life. Just know that they are there. There are a lot of patient advocates that's what they live for now. And so I really appreciate your being out there along with Whitney and the other booby queens. And I love you guys have the booby queens.
There's a great support network out there. And I think, with the Booby Queen Company and what Whitney and I are trying to do, we're trying to bridge that gap between the medical side of breast cancer and the mental health side of breast cancer. And, our goal through all of this is to reduce the barriers that exist for women to get mental health support after breast cancer. 1 in 3 women actually have a clinical diagnosis after breast cancer. 80% of women experience PTSD symptoms after breast cancer, but only 25% report getting services.
Okay.
So we are really working towards, reducing that number and increasing that percentage. We want mental health care to be the aftercare.
Yeah. I mean, I still go to my therapist and she's helped me all through all kinds of things, but no, I am definitely a supporter of that. Well, this is great, Kate. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your coming on here and sharing your story and the amazing things that you're doing in the breast cancer community. Is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up today?
I think we said it all.
Yeah, we did. We said a lot.
Yep.
Well,
But I
thank
appreciate
you.
you so much, and I thank you for your time, and I'm so grateful to be able to talk about this and to be able to share not just my story, but the resources and the work that we're doing out there, because it is really super important.
I love it. And one more thing, I love the fact that we get to collaborate with each other. I mean, this whole interview, and I love when people are so open out there, like we're not on our own little islands. We are working together in this greater good, this greater mission. So thank you for being part of that.
You've got to do it together. So thank you for
Absolutely.
doing this, and thank you for having me.
Yeah. And to my audience, thank you so much for joining us again on this episode of Test Those Breasts. And we will see you next time on the next episode. Bye for now. Friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I hope you got some great, much needed information that will help you with your journey. As always, I am open to guests to add value to my show, and I'm also open to being a guest on other podcasts where I can add value. So please reach out if you'd like to collaborate. My contact information is in the show notes. And as a reminder, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast will truly help build a bigger audience all over the world. I thank you for your efforts. I look forward to sharing my next episode of Test Those Breasts.